I survived an accident, but my family's betrayal hurts more. 3 years of silence, lies, and a crossroads for reconciliation. I, 35F, am in dire need of some guidance. I spent weeks in the hospital following a horrific vehicle accident 3 years ago. After a drunk truck driver crashed into my automobile, I suffered a fractured arm and had to spend a lengthy time recovering to regain my ability to walk. Even though the accident wasn't my fault, I'm still extremely cautious when driving even 3 years after it happened. The problem is that because my sister had gone into labor, my relatives did not come to my aid or offer me support during this trying time. Ironically, when the tragedy occurred, it was my route to surprise her at the hospital. I was employed at a company a couple hours away from my hometown at the time. I made the decision to surprise my sister after I received a call from my parents informing me that she was in labor and being taken to the hospital. I drove off after borrowing a friend's vehicle. I had an accident on the way there and was taken to the closest hospital. My friends and co-workers were the main people that helped me during my recuperation. At first, I could see why my parents were too busy with my sister and her infant. My parents didn't check on me, though, even days after my sister gave birth. I contacted them several times while falling in and out of consciousness, frantically asking staff if my parents had visited or called, despite the pain. Each time I encountered disappointment. My parents finally gave me a call about a week after the accident. However, they asked why I had been phoning them so much rather than how I was doing. They were with my sister, so apparently they had been ignoring my calls. Despite my surprise at their harshness, I inquired about my sister's and the baby's well-being. They didn't even ask how I was feeling. They just said that both of them were okay. My buddies told me that they had contacted my parents via every available channel to alert them of my accident. My parents didn't inquire about me, though. In an attempt to raise some awareness, I disclosed the information myself. Rather, they acknowledged that they already knew but decided not to reply because they thought my sister's needs should come first. Why couldn't they even pretend to care, I asked. At that point, they admitted to deliberately ignoring me. They thought my sister's birth was more significant than my injury, which they said I caused myself. I couldn't understand. It was a drunk truck driver who caused the accident, not me. However, they made it clear that they weren't referring to the truck driver. They accused me of being irresponsible for choosing to drive at such a late hour. They argued it was still unnecessary for me to do such a thing, and that I was solely responsible for the accident, when I explained that I was actually driving to the hospital to be there for my sister. That was a truly awful and inconsiderate thing for them to say. I hung up on them without saying anything else because I was so angry. I later learned from the hospital personnel that my parents were the first people called when emergency services spotted me at the scene of the accident and dialed 911. They had declined to appear and even asked not to be contacted over it in the future. Because I had my employee ID on me, the hospital subsequently got in touch with my place of employment, which is how my friends and co-workers learned about it. Finding out that rescue personnel had not bothered to arrive after being notified that their daughter had been involved in a catastrophic accident was even more disheartening. Even though I was only attempting to support my sister and the family, their sole reaction to the situation was to hold me responsible for what transpired. After that episode, I came to the realization that my family had no interest in supporting me, even though I wanted to be there for them. After that, not even my sister had bothered to get in touch with me. I really gave up on my family after that episode, so I haven't spoken to them in 3 years. I believe that our connection was normal previous to the accident, but I had always felt that my sister and her priorities took precedence over me. This was verified in the worst conceivable way by the accident. To be clear, I wasn't angry that they didn't come see me while my sister was in delivery. I was disappointed that they didn't feel it was necessary to see me even after my sister had given child. My sister was unable to visit me in the hospital at the time, so I didn't even anticipate her doing so. For my parents, however, it was not impossible. My sister was looked after by her in-laws and fiancé. All I had were my friends, but I was fortunate that they were supportive. They paid for my medical bills and supported me during my recuperation. Although I have yet to repay them, I am immensely appreciative of their generosity and assistance. I doubt I'll ever be able to pay them back in full. My family hasn't made an effort to get in touch with me, despite the fact that the incident occurred 3 years ago. Many members of the extended family have asked me why we are no longer together, but I have kept the answer to myself. I believe we had an unwritten agreement to keep this from other family members, and I followed it. But things have changed recently. My parents have begun discussing the incident in a way that portrayed me as the villain, so one of my aunts got in touch with me. This occurred a few weeks ago when my sister's promotion at work was celebrated with a family dinner hosted by my parents. The subject of my alienation from the family was raised throughout the meal. My parents ultimately made the decision to discuss it after much back and forth. They no longer believed that they had to keep it a secret. However, they altered the details of what transpired following my accident when telling the story. A few facts were accurate. I got into a car accident on the way to the hospital, where I had planned to surprise my sister. They asserted, however, that they were never notified and learned of the tragedy only a few days later. They said that a lot of time had gone by the time they learned, and they were too busy taking care of my sister and the baby to consider the reason I hadn't been in touch with them earlier. Additionally, they stated that they called me as soon as they found out about the accident, but I was too distraught to talk to them. That was not accurate at all. They continued by saying they had made multiple attempts to get in touch with me, but I had consistently turned them down. They said they eventually stopped attempting to contact me. In essence, they framed the entire incident as a miscommunication and portrayed me as the bad guy who had been harsh on them for their lack of concern. Despite my parents' explicit orders not to, my aunt, being the kind person she has chose to get in touch with me, they said they didn't want to make a big deal out of it. But I knew they were lying to me about what had happened because they didn't want me to know. According to my aunt, I hadn't spoken to my parents in 3 years, and they were truly missing me. She added that I was losing out on the chance to be my niece's aunt, and that she herself wouldn't pass up the chance. She advised me to get in touch with my folks. I phoned her back to get more information, since I was perplexed. I was astonished when she told me what my folks had stated. Although it had been the other way around, they had portrayed themselves as the victims and me as the egotistical villain. When I learned what they had been telling the family about what had occurred all those years ago, I became enraged. I made the decision to talk to my aunt and be honest with her. In case she didn't believe me, I even promised to connect her with my friends who had paid for my medical bills. I clarified that since my accident, my parents had lost all interest in me. Despite being contacted, they refused to be bothered. I informed her that I didn't even feel angry at them for putting my sister's needs first throughout her delivery, since I recognized how important that was. Their total disregard after that was what irritated me. My parents didn't bother to check on me after my sister had birth, and was surrounded by her in-laws and fiancé. My aunt was astonished to hear my side of the story, and expressed regret for having doubted me. I was glad she had talked to me, since I might not have known what my parents were talking about behind my back if she hadn't. I'm at a crossroads right now. Within the family, the truth about what transpired 3 years ago is beginning to surface. Numerous family members have contacted me to inform me that I had to tell my aunt about my experience. They claimed that I had every right to protect myself, and that if I hadn't spoken up, my parents might have gotten away with their falsehoods. My parents' treatment of me was unfair and undeserved, and some family members have even begun to show sympathy for me, recognizing how terrible my experience was. In a way, I'm grateful to my aunt for hearing my side of the story and making sure my parents' version of events wasn't allowed to go unpunished. But this has also started to cause problems. The family started to distance themselves from my parents after they learned that I had spoken to my aunt and that she had told others the truth. They're now holding me responsible for the consequences. How any of this is my fault is beyond me. I only told my aunt, and even then, I only spoke the truth. It was she who made the decision to tell the other members of the family. My parents, however, are making me answerable for the results. In essence, they framed the entire incident as a miscommunication and portrayed me as the bad guy who had been utterly intolerant of their lack of concern. Despite being expressly told by my parents not to talk to me about this, my aunt, being the kind person that she has chose to get in touch with me, I understood the true reason behind their assertion that they didn't want to make a big deal out of it. They didn't want anyone to talk to me because they didn't want me to discover that they had been lying about what actually occurred. 3 years had gone by since I last spoke to my parents, and my aunt called to let me know that they truly miss me. She claimed that I was losing out on the chance to be my niece's aunt, and she was aware that she wouldn't pass up such a chance. She therefore advised me to get in touch with my parents once more. I called her back and requested for additional information because I was so perplexed. I was startled when she told me what my parents had told them because they had framed me as the selfish villain and made themselves the victims, even though it had been the other way around. Hearing what they had told everyone in the family about what had transpired all those years ago infuriated me. I made the decision to talk to my aunt and be honest with her. In case she didn't want to trust me, I even offered to connect her with my friends who had paid for all of my costs. I was telling her the truth about what had actually occurred. I clarified that, following my injury, my parents were the ones that truly didn't give a damn about me. They simply did not want to be bothered, even though they had been approached. Since my sister was giving birth, which was also very important at the moment, I wasn't even upset with them for choosing to be there for her. Even so, I became irate when they failed to make the effort to come for me. Even my aunt seemed somewhat surprised when I explained this to her, and she apologized to me for having doubts about me. I was quite grateful that she had chosen to talk to me, since I doubt I would have ever learned what my parents were talking about behind my back. I'm at a crossroads right now. The family is beginning to come to terms with the reality of what transpired 3 years ago. Many individuals have been contacting me and telling me that it was vital for me to tell my aunt the truth. Otherwise, they claim, my parents could have gotten away with lying about what had transpired and painting me as the villain. Many family members have even begun to express sympathy for me, telling me that my parents should never have treated me that way and that what happened to me was truly terrible. They claim it was unjust and unworthy. In one sense, I owe my aunt a great deal for persuading others to listen to me and accept my version of events. If not, my parents' version of events would have been accepted. However, it has become rather problematic for me at the moment because the rest of the family began to turn away from my parents once they learned that I had discussed this with my aunt and that she had discussed it with others. Since all I did was tell folks the truth, I truly don't understand how any of this is my fault. I just told my aunt the truth, and she made the decision to tell everyone else. It would be inaccurate to even state that I told anyone the truth. In any case, they are blaming me for the current state of affairs because, at the moment, the family has essentially been avoiding them and no one wants to talk to them. This is bad because my niece's 3rd birthday, which also happens to be the 3rd anniversary of my injury, is being celebrated in a few weeks. They are currently worried that no one will show up for the birthday celebration now that the family has learned the truth. My niece is thrilled about her birthday celebration, and the whole family has been invited, so that will be somewhat disappointing. But as of yet, no one has replied to the invites, and some have already turned them down, without even having to provide a reason. That's what's happening at the moment. My family hasn't spoken to me in 3 years, but they have reached out to me because of this circumstance. They have been attempting to call and text me nonstop. The majority of their messages accuse me of intentionally causing this problem in order to take my sister's attention, but I haven't answered any of their calls since I don't think it's relevant. My parents and even my sister seem to think that I'm intentionally doing this because I find it infuriating that they opted to be with my sister during her childbirth rather than with me. They believe that I'm taking retribution in this way. They even went so far as to affirm that they were certain I intentionally got into the automobile late that evening in order to gain attention. They said that because my sister was giving birth and receiving all of the family's attention, I was envious of her. That's such a cruel, awful thing to say. No matter how much I could despise someone, I can't even fathom thinking that way about them. It's awful to be implied that I intentionally created a disaster in order to get sympathy and attention from my family. Furthermore, they are accusing me of attention-seeking even now, claiming that they are aware that I couldn't bear it when I learned that my sister had gotten a promotion at work and was doing well in her life. They therefore think I made the conscious choice to bring up and negatively portray historical events. They knew exactly what they were attempting to do, so I don't even see why they would say something like that. The hypocrisy of their actions, which were just what they were accusing me of, infuriates me. Since they first attempted to get in touch with me, I have continued to block their numbers and disregard all of their messages. But I don't know what to do next. Do I have to confront them about their falsehoods? Do I have to keep ignoring them and let the family issue work itself out? For the sake of my niece, who is innocent in all of this, should I try to patch things up? I could use some guidance on how to deal with this chaotic family scenario because I'm terribly conflicted. First update. Since my last post, which was approximately 2 weeks ago, things have significantly become worse. Even though I'm still processing all that has transpired, I feel compelled to give you all this update. My folks unexpectedly dropped by my apartment a few days ago. After 3 years of no communication, I was startled to see them at my door. I initially believed they could have come to apologize, but I couldn't have been more mistaken. They began screaming at me as soon as I answered the door and accused me of purposely attempting to damage their family's name. "How dare you spread lies about us?" my father said, pointing his finger at me in a fit of rage. They refused to listen to me when I tried to clarify that I had just given my aunt the truth. My mother said that I was trying to punish them for supporting my sister throughout her delivery because I was jealous of her. They refused to leave when I ordered them to. My dad took a step forward, raising his voice. "You must clean up the mess you made. Because of the lies you propagated, no one wants to go to your niece's upcoming birthday party." I lost it at that point. They were the ones who had been dishonest and had deserted me when I needed them most. I shouted back. My father stepped in the way when I attempted to shut the door. We were instantly engaged in a physical altercation as he pressed against the door. I gave him a hefty shove back in the heat of the moment. He staggered back, almost toppled over. I noticed a mixture of astonishment and horror in my mother's eyes as she yelled. We all remained there for a while, panting, the truth of what had happened beginning to set in. My father turned and remarked, "This isn't over," before they finally left. "You'll be sorry you did this." I sobbed after they were gone. I was crying and trembling from the shock of what had transpired. I've never been violent, so I was afraid that things had gotten to the point where they were physical. I was inundated with texts from different family members the following day. When my parents came to make peace, they apparently told everyone that I had attacked them brutally. I was portrayed by them as dangerous and unstable. I received texts from several family members who were disappointed since they thought they were real. Some, who were more dubious, contacted me to inquire about my version of events. I told people the whole truth and was honest with them. In a particularly nasty communication, my sister advised me to avoid her and her daughter. I feel confused and overburdened. Even if it was only a shove, I know I shouldn't have used physical force. However, I also feel as though I was forced into a difficult situation and had to respond to their violence. I'm concerned about the possible legal repercussions. Could they file assault charges? Do I need to report harassment? The family has never been more split. Some people are adamantly on my side, some are on my parents' side, and some are in the center, not knowing which side to believe. With individuals taking sides over whether or not to attend, the approaching birthday celebration for my niece has turned into a contentious issue. I struggle with guilt as well. Although I'm aware that my parents' actions were wrong, I sometimes question whether I ought to have handled the situation differently. My emotional state is a complete mess, even though my logical side understands I was defending myself. All of this has been made possible by my friends' tremendous support. They've been taking turns checking in on me and have offered to let me stay with them if I feel insecure in my apartment. To help me deal with everything, the accident 3 years ago, my family's rejection, and now this confrontation, I'm thinking of going to therapy. My mental health is suffering as a result of everything. I've made the decision to update my email address and phone number for the time being. In case my parents try to visit, I've also let my employer know about the issue. From here, how do I proceed? Should I think about taking legal action to defend myself? What should I do with my relatives who now perceive me as the antagonist in this tale? And above all, how do I begin to recover from this trauma? Second update. About a week has passed since my last update, and somehow things with my family have gotten even more problematic. My niece's 3rd birthday celebration, which ended up being a total bust, was the most important occasion. According to my aunt who was present at the celebration, just a small number of people attended, primarily members of my sister's close family and a few of her acquaintances. Because of the ongoing tension, the great bulk of the extended family decided to avoid it. From the beginning, the mood was extremely tight. My sister was about to cry, my parents were clearly under stress, and my niece kept inquiring about everyone's whereabouts. Things reached a breaking point halfway through the celebration when my mother sobbed and openly accused me of destroying everything and destroying the family. People who were more sympathetic to my side of the story and those who supported my parents got into a fight as a result. With all the yelling and bad vibes, my niece broke down in tears as well. After losing it, my sister yelled at everyone to leave, accusing them of ruining her daughter's birthday. The visitors shuffled awkwardly out as the party came to an abrupt stop. This makes me feel terrible. I feel guilty even though I know logically that I'm not to blame for this. I'm also upset that my parents continue to try to make me the bad guy in all of this. The family has never been more split. There are some in the middle who are fed up with the whole thing, while others are on my side and fully supporting my parents. Over the last 24 hours, I've gotten a variety of texts. While some family members have sent me heartfelt notes accusing me of being responsible for the party disaster, others have offered their support. In a particularly unpleasant email, my sister told me that she no longer considers herself to have a sister and that she never wants to see or speak to me again. I cannot describe how much those remarks stung. I still adore my sister and niece in spite of everything. I'm having trouble figuring out how to proceed from here. A part of me wants to get in touch with my sister and attempt to explain my position again, but another part of me questions whether it would be better to honor her desires and keep my distance, at least for the time being. I have no idea about my parents. I'm sick of the ongoing drama and suffering, but I also want to face them and force them to admit the harm they've caused. As suggested by many of you, I've been attending therapy sessions. Even if it's early, having a professional to discuss all of this with feels fantastic. She is trying to provide me with the skills I need to establish healthy boundaries with my family, while also assisting me in overcoming my feelings of guilt and rage. One thing the therapist stated that truly resonated with me was that it's acceptable to put my own mental health and well-being first, even if it meant putting my family at a distance. She emphasized that I'm not accountable for my sister's or parents' behavior, and that it is neither healthy nor normal. It's difficult, but I'm trying to take that seriously. Emotional manipulation and family dynamics that have existed for years don't go away quickly. I continue to question whether there was anything I could have done better, or if there was a way to stop all of this from occurring. However, I then remind myself of the reality. That accident wasn't anything I asked for. I didn't ask for my family to leave me when I most needed them. Furthermore, I didn't invite them to come to my door and level charges or to misrepresent what had happened. When asked, I only told the truth. So what should I do next? I'm thinking of writing a letter to the entire family to express my truth one final time before removing myself from the matter, not to defend myself or level accusations. Perhaps things would settle down if I expressed my disinterest in carrying on with this drama. My niece is also on my mind. I wonder whether I should save money for my sister's future, even though she doesn't want me in their lives right now. Perhaps I should create a college fund or something she can use as she gets older. How can all of this bring me peace? How can I emotionally safeguard myself while still maintaining the possibility of future reconciliation? And how can I get over my guilt about something I didn't cause? I appreciate your support, everyone. Having a location where I can discuss all of this and receive unbiased feedback matters more than you can imagine. For now, I'm going to concentrate on getting better and taking things one day at a time, but I'll keep you informed of any significant developments. Third update. About a week has passed since my last update, and I'm still getting used to all that has transpired. I appreciate all of your ongoing help and guidance. The most significant event is that yesterday, I got an email from my parents. When I saw it in my inbox, I was taken aback. I didn't think I'd hear from them after all this time, especially after the disastrous birthday celebration. An apology opened the email. Both in the immediate aftermath of my injury 3 years ago and in the more recent altercations, my parents admitted that they had handled the matter badly. They acknowledged that they should not have disregarded my cries for assistance, and that they had erred in putting my sister's needs ahead of their own when I was in the hospital. They also expressed regret for coming to my apartment and starting a physical altercation. My father acknowledged that his harsh behavior was inappropriate and expressed sincere regret for it. They also acknowledged that they had misled the family about what had occurred. They claimed to be embarrassed of what they had done and have come to see the harm their falsehoods had done to the whole family, not just to me. The email clarified that they had learned their lesson from the tragic birthday party. They realized the seriousness of their acts after witnessing the division in the family and the impact they had on my niece. They claimed that after reflecting deeply for the previous week, they had come to the conclusion that it was time to take responsibility for their errors. I had a range of emotions after reading this email. I felt a mixture of emotions, including a sense of vindication, anger at the length of time it had taken, and a glimmer of optimism that perhaps we could save our relationship. Mostly, though, I felt torn. I've been waiting for this apology for the past 3 years. They appear to be taking full responsibility for their conduct, and it looks honest. However, I can't help but question whether it's too little, too late. An email cannot quickly undo years of suffering and betrayal because of the deep-seated grief they have inflicted. A request to meet in person to discuss the matter was made at the end of the email. They stated they hoped that one day I'll be willing to give them an opportunity to make amends face-to-face, but they understand if I'm not ready for that. I still haven't replied. While I'm afraid of exposing myself to additional hurt, I also want to agree to meet them to see if there's any chance of repairing our friendship. I had a physical argument with them the previous time I saw them. After talking with my therapist about the email, she advised me to take my time answering. If I do choose to meet, she advised, it could be beneficial to do so in a neutral setting, perhaps with a mediator in attendance. In addition, my sister and niece have been on my mind. According to my parents' email, they have been honest with my sister about what transpired and have urged her to get in touch with me. I haven't heard from her yet. Even though I really miss her and my niece, I understand that I must give them space for the time being. It seems that my parents have apologized for their lies and explained the matter in a mass email to the rest of the family. Some family members have messaged me to give their support and to express their amazement at the news. I'm at a crossroads now. Should I strive to mend our relationship after accepting my parents' apology? Do I keep my distance from my own psychological well-being? Is it possible for me to appreciate their efforts without completely reintegrating them into my life just yet? In addition, I'm struggling with my own sense of duty and guilt. There's a part of me that questions whether I could have handled things differently, even though I know rationally that I'm not to fault for this circumstance. I'm making an effort to concentrate on my own recovery and development going forward. To help control my stress and anxiety, I've started mindfulness meditation and am still in treatment. I've also been considering changing my life for the better. I'm thinking about looking for a new job, maybe in a different city, to give myself a fresh start and some physical separation from all of this drama, not to escape my troubles. I have made the decision to establish a college fund for my niece. It seems like the appropriate thing to do, regardless of whether my sister wants to stay in touch with me. Perhaps when she's older, she'll realize how much I've always loved her. From here, how do I proceed? How can I strike a balance between the need to emotionally safeguard myself and the prospect of reconciliation? And with all of this, how can I begin to reconstruct my life and identity? Once again, I want to thank everyone for their support along this trip. For me, your counsel and encouraging remarks have been invaluable. Although I have no idea what the future will bring, knowing that this community is supporting me makes me feel a little more prepared to face it. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.